the civil rape case, a trial, is underway against, surprise, Donald J. Trump, former president. Ever heard of him? Yeah, I want to forget him forever. Anyway, this is over a 1996 allegation that he raped writer E. Jean Carroll in the dressing room of a Bergdorf Goodman in Manhattan. And this is the second time that she has sued Donald Trump. The first time she sued him in 2019, it was a defamation lawsuit involving his denial of her rape allegation. We'll get into his denial and why he denies it. It wasn't over the attack. But in November 2022, Carroll filed another lawsuit against Trump on both sexual battery and defamation grounds. And she was able to do so because of the Adult Survivors Act, which is a new New York state law, went into effect the same month, giving adult survivors of sexual misconduct a 1-year window to file civil cases that would otherwise be outside of the statute of limitations. So almost like the purge for real justice. Yeah, the statute of limitations is incredibly problematic. So she did. She filed again. Now it's important to remember that Trump isn't charged with any crime in relationship to her accusations. Instead, Carroll is seeking an unspecified monetary damages for a court order demanding that Trump retract what she called a defamatory statement he made criticizing her last year. And we'll get into what that defamatory statement is, but I just wanted to give you her opening words in this trial, which again is underway now. She says, "I'm here because Donald Trump raped me, and when I wrote about it, he said it didn't happen. He lied and shattered my reputation. I'm here to get my life back." So there you have it. That's what it is. It's a case of really justice and character. And to that end, let's just revisit what Donald Trump said about E. Jean Carroll when she came out with these allegations. He told The Hill 3 years ago, quote, "I'll say it with great respect. Number one, she's not my type. Number two, it never happened, okay?" As if number one were any kind of consolation or reassurance that someone could not be a rapist. But Cenk, there you have it, and here we are now going to trial, and we'll get into the specifics.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things that I was curious about is why people aren't making a bigger deal out of this trial. So now there's a number of potential reasons, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think. So number one, I get it, the event happened nearly 30 years ago. On the other hand, rape is a pretty significant crime. So I don't like that it didn't work for Kavanaugh, or maybe it did for Republicans, right? But it's not a thing where you go, oh, it was a rape, but it was 30 years ago, so it's okay. No, it's not okay, right? So there are two legal issues that it's gonna be really interesting to see how it turns out in this case. And then overall, it's a civil trial, not a criminal trial, so he's not gonna go to prison or anything like that. So I guess that's a reason to downplay it a little bit. And maybe I'm wrong, by the way, the media is downplaying it, but my sense of it is like the other cases they're making giant deals out of, like, oh my God, so many deals. And I think that those are giant deals. The Georgia case, all these different cases, right? The classified documents, et cetera. But this is also not only a giant case, but normally anything that's related to crime, sex, combination of sex and crime, the press usually goes bananas over, right? Now, her case has a couple of challenges too, because passing a law saying, well, the statute of limitations ran out, but secretly it didn't. I'm super curious to see how the courts react to that. For legal reasons, on legal grounds, not having to do with justice, but just about legal principles in this country. But as I saw the testimony, I thought, wow, she is super credible, and oh my God, I think he raped her, and then people are just kind of like treating it like an afterthought. I mean, imagine if there was a credible rape case against, I mean, I hate to even say it, right? But like Barack Obama or some sort of other renowned political figure, the whole country would lose their minds. That's the only thing they'd ever talk about. And so what the hell's going on here? that people aren't paying that much attention to this massive case.
I think that's a really good point, and it's not because the evidence isn't there, and I want to get into the story. But first, we just have to take that piece of vile misogyny that she's not my type to commit a violent crime against. What like? And I remember 3 years ago, we talked about how Chrissy Teigen said, oh yeah, Trump only rapes hot people, great. And that was, and it seemed like we would never see justice. So I am glad we're at least seeing this trial play out. And we'll get into the specifics, what the defense is saying, what the prosecution is saying. But on that particular point, actually in a deposition for this particular trial, Donald Trump, after having said that E. Jean Carroll, not his type, actually confused E. Jean Carroll for his former wife, Marla Maples, someone who was enough of his type that he married her. So this is from the Washington Post. Earlier this year, Trump mistook his sexual assault accuser, E. Jean Carroll, for his ex-wife, Marla Maples, when shown a photograph from the 1990s in a deposition at Mar-a-Lago last year, potentially undermining one of the common defenses he has used to deny an attack. Quote, "That's Marla, yeah, that's my wife," Trump said under an examination from Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan. Oops, doesn't look good. But let's just get into, these are a few details. I'm not gonna go into the whole thing, but everyone should read what happened. Effectively, E. Jean Carroll was coming out of a Bergdorf Goodman and ran into Donald Trump. He asked her to help her pick out a gift for a woman, and she did. And they ended up in the lingerie section, and he convinced her to go try on a piece of lingerie, or at least go to the fitting rooms. So here's where we pick up with, this is from E. Jean Carroll's words and her testimony. She says, quote, "I was flirting the whole time, probably. Trump led her to the dressing room, which was open. Carroll made it clear that Trump did not force her there. They went into the dressing room. Quote, that open door has plagued me for years because I just walked into it," she said. "He immediately shut the door and shoved me up on the wall," Carroll said. "He shoved her so roughly that her head hit the wall. She didn't quite understand what was unfolding. Quote, for a minute, I thought maybe it was a mistake. I pushed him back and he threw me back against the wall, banging my head again," Carroll said. "Did she scream, yell for help? Quote, I didn't want to make a scene. I know that sounds strange. I didn't want to make him angry at me." Trump put his shoulder against Carroll, pinning her to the wall. He leaned down and tugged down her tights. She was pushing him, and it was, quote, quite clear that she didn't want what he was doing. His fingers went into my vagina, which was incredibly painful, extremely painful. It was a horrible feeling because he put his hands inside of me and he curved his fingers, Carroll said. And then lastly, she says, "As I'm sitting here today, I can still feel it," she said. He then forced himself inside her. Carroll described trying to break away. So yeah, using his fingers and then raped her, sexual intercourse. And this is unlike Kavanaugh, as Cenk, you mentioned, that was an attempted rape, and he still became sitting on the highest bench in the land when it comes to US law. And hey, here's a former president, but who was currently president at the time. It's just, every part of the story makes my skin crawl, and and I think the part that bothers me the most is that this was a perfectly fine interaction. They were both having a good time. It was perfect, like you can flirt, you can walk around, you could, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden he decided, oh no, I'm going violent with this. And he raped her.
So the reason that I said that she sounds incredibly believable is a number of factors. Number one, she readily admits that she was flirting with him, and she didn't think it was going to go in this direction at all. But she's very honest about all those facts, and she says, "I don't think I said no." Now, why would you lie about that, especially if you're trying to frame the guy and you're suing the guy? It's so easy to say that you said no. No one even has to hear you. It's inside that room. You could have said no 12 times and probably no one would have heard you. But nonetheless, she was honest about it. So that to me is pretty telling. But it doesn't really matter. I know we have to judge these in the court of public opinion, and it's gross in a lot of ways. And the fact that women in general are not believed is maddening, etc. But here in this case, nonetheless, for the skeptics, She told two people right afterwards. One of them said, "You're not getting it. You were raped. You did not agree to that at all. It has obviously greatly traumatized you, and he had intercourse with you, and he held her against the wall to do it. You got to report him to the police." The other person said, "No, don't. He'll ruin your life. Right? He's a celebrity, etc. So don't do it." So those people corroborate what she said back then, not today. Back then, that is excellent evidence. And so. Yep. And Francesca, as I hear her description of what Donald Trump did, the Access Hollywood tape becomes way more haunting when he said, "I just grabbed them by the genitalia and they let me do it because I'm a celebrity." And one of her friends at this time said, "Don't pursue criminal charge against him because he's a celebrity and he'll overwhelm me with lawyers and ruin your life." And Trump made it seem like, oh, they don't mind. No, what he was actually saying in that tape is, we just raped them and we use our power and privilege to get away with it.
That's exactly right. And both of those things, her attorneys have brought up, right? So Sean Crowley is one of her attorneys, brought up exactly that, the Access Hollywood tapes, and is going to be calling those two witnesses who she did tell about the rape, to the stand. So this is all unfolding. I mean, my God, he's lucky, right? Oh, he's lucky it's a civil trial. The dude should be behind bars. And maybe that is why we're not talking about it, because it's not gonna bring him in, as if any of this is gonna hold him accountable, right? As if no matter how all of these lawsuits play out, it's like, which one is gonna get him, right? It's not even really sort of drooling over this idea he's gonna see the inside of a prison cell. It's not going to happen. And it's sort of, this case makes it very clear. It's not about whether he sees the inside of a prison cell, which he should. It is whether or not he is allowed to keep running his mouth about things like, oh, I didn't rape you. No, it did happen. And now you owe her damages for the amount of people who have been vilifying her, coming after her, obviously trolling her. I mean, to say nothing of what she actually experienced, which, by the way, she says that since 1996, she's not been able to have an intimate relationship with anyone since it occurred. And I feel like that, for those of people who are survivors, so many of them out there, that rings very, very true in terms of this encounter. A rape completely changes how you view your intimate relationships. I do want to go to, though, the trial and the jury. So there are 6 men and 3 women sitting on the jury. The judge is Judge Lewis Kaplan. A little bit more about him. He was nominated by Bill Clinton. He's had overseen a number of high-profile proceedings, presided over actor Anthony Rapp's recent sexual misconduct trial against Kevin Spacey, and he's now overseeing crypto bro Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud case. So very high profile. It doesn't seem like Trump will have to appear in court, although the judge just sort of made grumblings that, why the hell not? He's on the campaign trail. He should probably appear. And then for his part, Donald Trump's got his defense attorney, a guy named Joe Tacopino, who is pointing to Carroll not remembering whether it was 1995 or 1996. And has said, quote, "It all comes down to, do you believe the unbelievable?" And I gotta say, of all the Trump anecdotes I've heard, this one is pretty gross and pretty up there. Also, insanely believable. Bergdorf Goodman, strong-arming a woman, trying to flirting with her as you try to get another woman a gift. It all just feels like, yeah, check, 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 tacky, rapey, got it. And then finally, I just a hats off, like E. Jean Carroll is an incredible talent in her own right. She was nominated, I believe, for an Emmy the same year that she was raped by Donald Trump. There's a lot she could say right now, and she had this to say. She says, "I don't particularly like attention because I'm suing. Getting attention for being raped is not, it's hard. Getting attention for making a great 3-bean salad, that would be good." She is a very talented and funny writer. So it's a shame that this is somewhat and part of her bio, her story.
Yeah. So last couple of things here. The difference in perspectives is amazing. Because as a man, I never considered what E. Jean Carroll said and about how she did not have an intimate relationship after that for these last 27 years or so. And it was heartbreaking to hear that. I mean, it's a consequence of sexual assault that as a man I never considered and didn't run across. And already it was horrific enough of a crime. But when you add that in, Jesus, man. And so this civil case is the least of it in terms of consequences that should be had for that kind of grotesque action. So, and then on the year that it happened, guys, I don't know, I'm getting up there, right? But I remember one summer, I nearly fell off a cliff and my friend caught me at the last second. And I mean, I don't know if I would have died. It was pretty steep, but I thought it as a young guy at that time that I might have died there if he hadn't caught me. That's a pretty, I still remember to this day, pretty big event in my life. I couldn't tell you what year it was if my life depended on it. I mean, you guys think about what happened a couple of decades ago. Do you remember? I don't remember the month, the years, etc. So to me, that's like, if that's Donald Trump's best defense, that's super weak sauce. So, and then finally, on the defamation issue, look, sometimes people sue and then the person they're suing goes, well, that's not true. And they go, you're calling me a liar, defamation, I'm gonna add that. That's kind of an annoying tactic. This is not that, because all of Donald Trump's fans, which is like 40% of the country, then characterize her as a kook and a loon and someone who's mentally unbalanced, etc. And then the media debated it. And so, I mean, if any time somebody had actual defamation against them because they were called a liar, this would be the case, right? Yep. So I think she's got an amazing case, and he might have, I mean, one of our members wrote in saying he'll probably he'll probably lose the case, a civil case, and he'll probably appeal it and fight it the rest of his life, which is probably true, which is both good news and bad news, of course. What we're really rooting for is justice for E. Jean Carroll.
And for final reminder, this is not the only sexual assault allegation levied on the former president. I believe there's a couple dozen. So yay, just one of the most egregious ones.
So Al Franken had to leave the Senate because he took a goofy picture 10 feet from someone pretending to do a joke. And the Republicans at the time pretended to be super morally outraged by that. Donald Trump, it looks like there's excellent evidence that he raped someone. They're like, oh, whatever, it's no big deal. Never, ever, ever talk about family values if you're a Republican. Just at least have the decency to shut your mouth about it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.